Etching a course through southern Idaho and along its western border with Oregon, the Snake River provides a natural route for Union Pacific trains heading to and from the Pacific Northwest. This is the route of the Oregon Short Line, and trains have been rolling through this wild and scenic country since 1884. In part one of this two-part series across Idaho, we are focusing on the western portion of the OSL from Huntington, Oregon to Nampa, Idaho, on Union Pacific's Huntington subdivision. Trains wind through the Burnt River Canyon in extreme eastern Oregon and navigate the Idaho side of the Snake River in the southern reaches of Hell's Canyon. Then sprint through the lush Treasure Valley. Several mixed manifest trains are seen daily. Along with hot Z trains. Heavy soda ash trains with 5 mid-train DPUs. Many locals work out of Nampa, and we will see them servicing customers along the way. Short lines? You bet! We will catch the Oregon Eastern Railroad working at Ontario. And the Boise Valley Railroad at Caldwell. Along with a variety of trains, many historic depots still remain, like this one at Caldwell, and Nampa, and this rare relic from the streamliner era at Nyssa. Get ready for an incredible journey along a main line that is often overlooked by rail fans. Join us now for Union Pacific's Idaho Main Line Part 1, the Huntington Sub. Organized as a subsidiary of the Union Pacific in 1881, the Oregon Short Line Railway built west from Granger, Wyoming, to Huntington, Oregon, where it met the Oregon Railway and Navigation Company building east from Portland. This was a strategic move to keep the OR&N from expanding any further eastward into Idaho. The line provided the Union Pacific with a much-needed gateway into the Pacific Northwest. The whole system was absorbed into the UP by 1936. Interestingly, the Oregon Short Line continued to exist under a lease agreement until December 30th, 1987, when it was fully merged with the UP. Today, we will look at the west end of the Oregon Short Line route, working west to east beginning at Huntington, milepost 538.1. This is the eastern half of the Huntington subdivision, which begins nearly 100 miles to the west at La Grande. From Huntington, the main line heads east through the narrow Burnt River Canyon to the confluence with the Snake River, where it crosses into Idaho. This is the southern portion of Hell's Canyon, and from here, the rails take a southeasterly heading through the sidings of Rock Island and Cobb. Leaving the canyon, we pass through Weiser, Crystal, and Payette, where the Idaho Northern and Pacific branch joins the UP. Continuing compass south, the line again crosses the Snake into Oregon, arriving at Ontario, and the junction with the Oregon Eastern branch line heading west to Vail. At Nyssa, the OSL crosses the Snake back into Idaho and turns east with the course of the Boise River through Parma and Notus. At Caldwell, the Boise Valley Railroad's Wilder branch connects with the UP just 10 miles from our final destination of Nampa, milepost 456.8. We begin our journey in the small eastern Oregon town of Huntington. Located just west of the border with Idaho, Huntington is the place where the Oregon Short Line, building west from Granger, Wyoming, met the Oregon Railway and Navigation Company building east from Portland, Oregon, thus creating a direct route for the Union Pacific between Omaha and Portland. The Golden Spike was driven here on November 25, 1884, and trains began running on December 1st. Before the railroad, this was a site of Miller's Stagecoach Station, built by Henry Miller, who settled here in 1862. Miller sold his holdings 20 years later to two brothers with the last name of Huntington. At the time this photo was taken, around 1890, Huntington had the reputation of a Wild West town, earning the nickname Sin City. This is looking east, with the main line on the left curving off toward Hell's Canyon. Fast forwarding to the year 2022, and the Huntington turn out of Nampa enters the yard at the end of its westbound run with a string of cement hoppers and a few loads of concrete ties for the maintenance of way department. This train usually is seen in the morning and runs 5 days per week. The train is symboled the LCA 58. Power for the 58 local is a pair of EMD SD70Ms built in the early to mid-2000s. As you will see, these units are the power of choice for the various locals that work the Huntington and Nampa subdivisions in southern Idaho. Huntington is a maintenance of way base, with UP's route over the Blue Mountains to the west and the Snake River to the east. A worker uses an electromagnet to transfer tie plates from a high rail truck to a gondola. UP 8719 East leads a manifest through Huntington and heads for the Snake River. As it does so, mileposts change on the line, reflecting the two railroads that joined here. The Oregon Railway and Navigation Company line begins at Portland, milepost 0, and counts up to Huntington, milepost 388.4 at the west switch. The east switch of Huntington, milepost 390.33 on the ORNN, becomes milepost 538.1 on the OSL and counts down to its starting point near Granger, Wyoming. As the 8719 clears, the Huntington turn has finished its work and is ready to make the return trip to Nampa. The Burnt River has charted the railroad's course through eastern Oregon's hill country toward the confluence with the Snake. Just east of Huntington, it guides the line through a narrow canyon. Spring rains add green to the hills on the Oregon-Idaho border, a setting that has changed little since the rails were first laid here in 1884. North of here, the railroad cuts through the deepest gorge in North America, surpassing even the Grand Canyon in Arizona. It is called Hell's Canyon, and rightly so, for it plunges 8,000 feet below the Seven Devils Mountains on the Idaho side and more than a mile below the rim of the Oregon side. This vantage point is from the Idaho side, where trains cross the river on a three-span through-truss bridge near milepost 537. UP 4510 leads the Huntington turn out of the Burnt River Canyon. We visited the Snake River Canyon area in May, and while many days were quite pleasant and warm, there were also cold spells reminding us that summer is still a little ways down the road. While taking in the scenery, UP 5399 West takes a 136-car soda ash train across the river into Oregon. Soda ash is mined near Granger, Wyoming, and shipped in unit trains like this. The train's symbol is the OGRT4. It originated at Granger and is bound for the Terminal 4 export facility in Portland, where it'll be loaded onto ship. Soda ash is primarily used in glass manufacturing. These heavy trains are often powered by 9 engines, in this case 2 on the point, 5 mid-train remotes, and 2 more on the rear. After crossing into Idaho, the railroad follows the winding course of the Snake River in more or less a southeasterly direction for the next several miles. UP 5600 West leads a short manifest train between Rock Island and Huntington, behind a trio of GE AC 4400s. After the train crosses into Oregon, we move railroad east toward the siding of Rock Island. The UP dispatcher is fleeting a couple of westbounds through some track work near Caldwell, so we knew the next train wouldn't be too far behind. Rock Island is the first sighting encountered in Idaho and is 8,235 feet in length. UP 6518 has another manifest in tow and a clear block on the main. Manifest trains on the Huntington subdivision originate from several eastern points, including North Platte, Nebraska, Roper, Utah, and Pocatello, Idaho. Western terminals include Hinkle, Portland, and Eugene, Oregon. Besides manifests, intermodal trains make a regular appearance on the Oregon Short Line, with points of origin including Portland and Tacoma, Washington to the west, and Chicago's various intermodal yards in the east. UP 7726 takes a stack train east through Rock Island. When most people think of Oregon, they picture the more densely populated northwest region around Portland or along the coast. But this too is Oregon, and a stark contrast to the western side. The Snake River charts a course between Oregon's Slaughterhouse Range and Idaho's Dead Indian Ridge, which rises over 4,200 feet above sea level. It is a wild and lonely country, yet as we continue east, the scenery will soon change. The east end of Rock Island is milepost 531.9. A westbound stack train races over the east switch as it heads for the canyon. South of Rock Island is Farewell Bend State Park, located on the Oregon side of the river. This was a significant stop for pioneers following the Oregon Trail in the 1800s, as it was the last camp along the Snake River Plains where they could rest, water, and graze their animals before turning north through the more rugged country toward the Columbia River. Directly across the river from Farewell Bend are the Weiser Sand Dunes, which cover an area of roughly 130 acres between the sidings of Rock Island and Cobb. UP 8208 leads an eastbound manifest past the dunes, with Oregon's Farewell Bend State Park in the background. A green signal is for a morning Z train bound for Portland, Oregon. UP 3052 and EMD SD70 AHT4 leads the hot westbound. A battle-hardened SD70 Ace works mid-train. We have jumped back over to the Oregon side of the river for an early morning meet at Cobb, near milepost 526. The Snake River winds for 1,078 miles from western Wyoming to the Palouse Hills of eastern Washington, with a halfway point in Hells Canyon. Just as this portion led the Oregon Trail pioneers westward, the river continues to guide rail traffic flowing to and from the Pacific Northwest. Our first train arrives from the east, and we recognize it as the Huntington turn. It'll be down for one eastbound before continuing downriver. After several minutes, the silence is broken again by UP 5467 East. The manifest had to climb 2 mountain grades after leaving LeGrand last night, and the crew is hoping for an easy run over the mostly level track for the rest of the trip to Nampa. The country begins to open up as the railroad follows the river out of the canyon, and soon trains will be rolling along irrigated farmland. But for now, at least on the Oregon side, the railroad is hidden on the far side of the Snake behind the Darrows Islands. Trackside again. The grade curves along the base of Indian Head Mountain, while Porter's Flat stretches beyond the far bank in Oregon. In the distance lies the Treasure Valley and the country we are heading for. UP 6000 East races along the nearly level track between Cobb and Weiser, with the Canadian National GEVO assisting. 2 more GEs bring up the rear. The train makes the curve and enters a stretch of tangent track to the southeast that will lead it through the small town of Weiser. Classic code lines follow much of the Huntington subdivision, harkening back to a time when trains had steam and early diesel engines on the head end and cabooses on the rear. Photographers often considered them a nuisance when trying to compose a shot, and now that they have mostly disappeared from the railroad scene, we regard them with the same nostalgia as we would seeing a solid set of SD40-2s powering a mainline train. A westbound is approaching with the typical power for this day and age, a pair of Aces and a GE 60/44AC. The train rolls through the high-speed curve at milepost 524. Continuing east, the railroad leaves the bank of the ever-bending Snake River for a straight shot through a locality referred to as Jonathan, just west of Weiser. This is our first taste of the abundant farm country we'll be rolling through as we continue to Nampa. UP 7957 heads west. At Weiser, we find one of several remaining train depots from the Oregon Short Line era. It was built in 1907 out of brick and cast stone and served as the community's transportation hub during the golden age of railroading. The depot was saved by the Weiser Architectural Preservation Committee, which obtained a grant to renovate and use it as an interpretive center. We will see two more identical depots today, one at Ontario, Oregon, and the other at Caldwell, Idaho. On display next to the depot is a Class CA-8 caboose number UP25541. It was built by the International Car Company in Kenton, Ohio in 1964. The Dash 8s were the first cabooses delivered with roller-bearing trucks, and this one saw over 20 years of service and was retired on December 15, 1986, and donated to the town of Weiser. Just east of the depot is the former junction of the Pacific and Idaho Northern Railroad, which followed the Weiser River out of town. The railroad operated from around the turn of the century, hauling livestock and produce before being abandoned in 1995. The old junction with the OSL is now used as an industrial spur, and the rest of the line has become a bike path known as the Weiser River Trail. Located right on the Oregon-Idaho border, in the form of the Snake River, Weiser's economy is powered by farming, orchards, and livestock. The signal bridge at milepost 516.3 is at the east end of the siding, which contains both a north and south siding with a main in the middle. Both sidings are over 8,000 feet in length. UP 6820 East is in the hole on the north siding for two westbounds. The first is the high-priority UPS train led by UP 2547. This Z is usually quite long, with two DPUs working mid-train. The UPS train ran around a lower priority manifest near Caldwell at Notus. That train, led by UP 8340, is now right on its heels as it chases the Z toward the Blue Mountains of Oregon. With the two westbounds out of the way, UP 6820 East finally gets a light to depart Weiser. The train is in a 3x2 configuration, with many heavy lumber loads out of the Pacific Northwest. The next day, we returned to Weiser to find the Huntington turn waiting in the south siding for a couple of westbounds. You can usually catch the hot UPS train here mid-morning, and so we do again today. The signals at East Weiser are set back up for another westbound. This time it is a grain train led by UP 6281. The AC-44CW was built in April of 1995 and originally wore scarlet and gray with the number SP-215. This train is using distributed power in a 2x3x1 configuration. The two westbounds are out of the way, and UP 4510 heads out of the south siding on its return trip to Nampa. As the Huntington subdivision continues east, the railroad passes the siding of Crystal and arrives at Payette, milepost 504.9. There is a small yard and siding here with a length of 8,067 feet. The 58 local ducks under the signal bridge as it heads for Huntington. Located at the mouth of the Payette River, this was originally a construction camp for the Oregon Short Line named Boomerang between 1882 and 1884. Logs were floated down the Payette River to sawmills for making railroad ties. The town was incorporated in 1891 as Payette, named for a French-Canadian fur trapper who arrived here from Astoria, Oregon. UP 6478 takes a manifest east through town. Payette is also a junction with the Idaho Northern and Pacific's line to Emmett Junction and on to the rural city of Cascade, around 100 miles to the northeast. The Boise Cascade Mill closed in 2001, and the INPR operated the Thunder Mountain Tourist Line between Horseshoe Bend and Cascade until 2016. A metal recycling center is located near the junction with the UP and appears to give the railroad some business. The main line continues compass south and will soon cross the Snake River again into Oregon. Back in the Beaver State, we arrive at Ontario. Just south of the Snake River crossing is another depot from the Oregon Short Line. Built using the same plan as the depots in Weiser and Caldwell, the Ontario Depot was constructed also in 1907 in the Romanesque Queen Anne style. It replaced a wooden depot built around 1883. This was the focal point of Ontario as the new rails connected this rural area with the rest of the United States. During World War I, this depot was the largest shipper of wool in the nation and employed as many as 50 people handling freight and livestock. Ontario has been a stopping point for U.S. presidents including FDR and Harry Truman. and the destination for the first transcontinental automobile crossing of the U.S. in 1903 by H. Nelson Jackson and Sewall Crocker, who successfully made the journey in this 1903 Winton touring car. Now owned by the City of Ontario, the depot serves the community as a venue for meetings and celebrations. The railroad still provides an important agricultural link to the community, and the depot provides a great backdrop for passing trains. As thunderstorms brew in the west, giving us great evening light, UP 8896 East heads through Ontario after crossing the Snake River near Payette. Like Weiser, Ontario has a north and south siding, both of which are over 8,400 feet long. The manifest met UP 8792 west, and it races past the historic depot in the last minutes of daylight. As the stack train disappears to the north, another day of rail fanning has drawn to a close. Ontario was founded in 1883 and had a post office the following year. Naturally, the arrival of the Oregon Short Line boosted the economy. The Heinz Frozen Food Company processes locally grown potatoes to the tune of over 600 million pounds each year, producing 75 different types of potato products. Besides potatoes, onions are another big item grown here, along with cattle and hay. Another pair of SD70Ms, led by UP 3888, lead another local out of Nampa into Ontario. This is the A44, or the Ontario turn. It meets the Huntington turn, which is done with its work and heading east. Just east of our location is the junction with the Oregon Eastern Railroad, which operates on the remaining 26-mile portion of the former Union Pacific Burns Branch. Today, the OERR is bringing a string of reefers from Vail. Power is a former Southern Pacific GP35 numbered OERR 3600 and now designated as a GP39-3. While the Oregon Eastern crew does their work, we head just west of the junction where the railroad crosses Alameda Drive. Hoping for a good shot of their return trip to Vail, gathering clouds in the west make our good afternoon lighting a gamble today. While waiting at the junction, the Oregon Eastern meets a westbound soda ash train. As if waiting for the good light to return, the OERR 3600 finally starts its journey west. The east switch of Ontario is milepost 496.4 and is located near the crossing of Onion Road. Mid-afternoon often finds a lull in traffic while maintenance of way work goes on. In our case, we are waiting for the A44 local to finish working Ontario, and we take in the local scenery. This is part of the Treasure Valley region along the Snake River, from Vail, Oregon to Boise, Idaho. It was named for the treasure chest of resources and opportunities offered by the region. The A44 finally has a light to return east, and the signals at CPN 496 go red as the train slowly makes its way down the south siding and onto the main. The next stop for the A44 is Nyssa, as it returns back east and clears Onion Road for local traffic. The next town to the south, or Railroad East, is the last station in the state of Oregon we'll be traveling through, Nyssa. Located in the Treasure Valley along the Snake River, this was originally a shipping point for sheep and livestock on the OSL. Today, russet potatoes, sugar beets, onions, corn, flower seed, mint, and wheat make up the local economy. Nyssa is a charming little town of around 3,200 people. Its nickname is the Thunder Egg Capital of the World, and its motto is the Gateway to the Oregon Trail, with the Oregon Trail Agriculture Museum located here at the corner of 2nd and Good Avenue. Experiments with growing sugar beets began in 1935, and with it came the Amalgamated Sugar Company's Nyssa plant, which began operation in 1938. The sugar company was founded in 1897 by businessman David Eccles, who had a hand in the Union Pacific. The Nyssa plant was in operation until 2005, and at one time produced more sugar than any other plant owned by the company. Today, the sugar beets are shipped to Nampa for processing, and this plant's production is greatly reduced, with only the brown sugar line remaining. Probably one of the most interesting features in Nyssa has got to be the Union Pacific train depot. Dubbed the Stationary Streamliner, the depot was designed by the UP Engineering Department in 1941 to reflect the modern streamlined diesel-electric trains such as the city of Portland. It is complete with a UP Streamliner paint scheme of Harbor Mist Gray, Armor Yellow, and Leaf Brown. In 1948, the southern end of the depot was expanded to include a larger freight office and storage room. UP built a few similar buildings, one in Las Vegas and a couple around Kansas, but they have since been demolished, making this depot a rarity and worth taking a look at if you're in the area. Passenger trains quit running through Nyssa in 1997, when Amtrak's Pioneer between Seattle and Chicago via Boise was discontinued after a 20-year run. UP 7529 takes more freight west, with some of the same engines we saw a couple of days earlier near Weiser, including the Canadian National 3083 and UP 6000. In its early days, Nyssa was simply a siding with a water tank for topping off thirsty steam locomotives. The base for the water tank is still visible across the tracks from the depot. Behind that, a small switch engine number 15 rests at the Amalgamated Sugar Plant, which is still served by the UP. After the completion of the Oregon Short Line, the railroad began building a network of branch lines throughout Idaho and eastern Oregon, including the South Side Line, which joins the railroad here. It was planned as a second main line that would follow the Snake River through Twin Falls and reconnect with the OSL west of Pocatello at Minidoka. Although that never came to be, the South Side Line did see plenty of business for a while before being mostly abandoned in 1997. The remaining track is now an industrial spur. To the south, the OSL main line again crosses the Snake River into Idaho before turning east to follow the Boise River toward Nampa. The signal for control point CPN 488 shows a clear on the main for UP 8208 East. Crossing the Snake River into Idaho for one final time, trains roll through the Apple Valley near milepost 486. Farms and feedlots dominate the scene, while the A44 local approaches from the east. Today's train is making a mad dash for Ontario, just ahead of the morning's UPS train, which has just left Nampa and is nearing Caldwell. The headlights of another eastbound are visible as it takes the siding at Nyssa for the local and the Hot Z. Let's move quickly east and see if we can beat it to Parma. We made it, thanks to a slow order just east of the siding of Parma, which is located at milepost 481. With a population of just under 2,000, Parma is the fourth largest city in Idaho's rural Canyon County, just 40 miles west of Boise. An interesting attraction at Parma is the old Fort Boise replica and museum. Constructed by the Hudson's Bay Company in 1834 on the bank of the Snake River, Fort Boise was an important supply post along the Oregon Trail until severe flooding and trouble with the Shoshone Indians brought about its closure in 1854. A new Fort Boise was founded by the Union Army during the Civil War in 1863. That location is now Idaho's capital city. Alongside the replica of the old fort stands a Veterans Memorial, and we pause for a moment to pay our respects. As it reads, "Lest we forget." As the railroad continues in a southeasterly heading toward Nampa, we pass a small town of Notus. Actually, it has a designation as the smallest town in Canyon County, with around 600 residents. The largest town is our destination of Nampa. Notus is near milepost 471.5 on the Huntington subdivision, just 5 miles west of Caldwell. 10 engines power another heavy westbound soda ash train through Notus in a 3x5x2 configuration. As the Oregon Short Line built west of Wyoming, it was expected the track would pass through Boise City. The problem was a steep grade required to get there, so instead, a spike was driven in the sage-covered flat to the south, and the city of Caldwell was born. Originally called Bugtown, Caldwell was platted in August of 1883. We have set up near milepost 466, where the former Idaho Northern Pacific's Wilder Branch line connects to the UP. Another metal recycling center is located on the north side of the main. UP 4744 East brings the Huntington turn through Caldwell in the early afternoon. The former IN&P's Wilder branch takes off in a due west heading for 11 miles and serves several customers in that short distance. This line, along with a portion of the Boise Cutoff in Nampa, is now operated by Watco as the Boise Valley Railroad. One of its customers is Simplot, located at milepost 2.5. After picking up a couple of reefers, the BVRR train heads for the junction with the UP. A lone GP39-2 in Watco paint powers the train running long hood forward. A couple of days later, we caught the Watco 3821 on the point as the train enters the UP at Caldwell Junction. We have two more depots to show you as we continue east. The first is the familiar design we have seen already. The Caldwell Depot was built in 1906 and played an important role in the development of the downtown area. This was the third depot constructed on site at a cost of $40,000. It was purchased by the city from the Union Pacific in 1989 for $1 and now is a vital part of the downtown revitalization project. While enjoying the depot, we hear the A44 local approaching. As we come to the east end of the Huntington subdivision, we arrive at Nampa, milepost 456.8. Like so many towns we have visited, Nampa's beginnings are tied to the building of the Oregon Short Line in the early 1880s. Several branch lines were connected to the main here, making Nampa an important railroad town. Unlike many towns of its day where the streets ran north and south, Nampa's streets were built perpendicular to the main line, in a northeast-southwest heading. This was done to make it safer for horses and buggies in the old days to cross the tracks without risk of getting a wheel stuck along the rail. Since the main line did not run through Boise, Nampa ended up with one of the nicest depots on the railroad. It was opened in 1903 and operated as a station until 1927, when a newer, bigger depot was constructed. Today, it is home to the Canyon County Historical Society Museum and is open to the public on Fridays and Saturdays. On static display nearby is the last steam-powered wreck derrick to be used on the UP when it was donated to the museum in 1979. It was built for the Oregon Short Line in 1917 and worked out of Pocatello, Glens Ferry, Ogden, and finally Salt Lake City before being retired. The museum sits right across from the UP Yard Tower. This is a division point between the Huntington and Nampa subdivisions, with the latter continuing east for 242 miles to Pocatello. But we'll save that story for next time. Manifest trains from places like Portland, Hinkle, Pocatello, North Platte, and Ogden can be switched here, and several locals, as we have seen, also work out of the yard, including the Mountain Home Turn, Ontario, Glens Ferry, Gooding, and Huntington turns. In addition, the Boise Valley Railroad works a 25-mile portion of the Boise Cutoff under a lease purchase agreement that includes trackage rights on the main line between Nampa and Caldwell. UP 2604 leads a westbound Z train past the old yard tower after making a trip across the Nampa subdivision. Traffic from nearby 11th Avenue, which passes underneath the tracks right in front of us, drowns out the sound of the train as it slowly makes its way toward the west end of the yard. A pair of DPUs, including a Norfolk Southern ES40 DC number 7547, adds additional horsepower mid-train. In the 181 miles ahead, the train will meet up with the Snake River, crossing the state line a few times before arriving at Huntington, Oregon, where it starts its course into the Blue Mountains to its crew change point at La Grande. But that's a story for another time. We hope you've enjoyed this look at the western portion of Union Pacific's Oregon Short Line route, and we look forward to returning soon to continue our journey across the Gem State. As always, until next time, thanks for watching.